Before we started working together, what was happening in your business or your life that made you realize that, hey, something needs to change?
Yeah, so I reflected on this earlier, just where from yeah, because we were having this conversation, and I think we've been through so much of a shift. So from a business perspective, we kind of adopted a new model, whole change of kind of everything regarding there, and I just felt that it was so crazy, like such a mentally taxing time, and I felt like maybe I wasn't keeping up with the growth side of it, and I kind of had that constant the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, maybe a lack of self-confidence as well that was kind of lingering and a little bit of anxiety around just where I was going, what I was doing, where I wanted to be, all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to, kind of almost break a bit of a cycle of like I felt like I wasn't realizing my potential or I was in the way of me reaching my potential or like my next level of growth, I guess. And at a point where we were looking at starting a family, and so therefore it was kind of like where I was at from a business perspective and probably a mindset perspective. I probably just wasn't ready to even, understand how to make that work in terms of like finding a balance, finding that, feeling of always being on like my and being able to kind of be present. And I was just kind of probably preempting that would be really challenging if I didn't do something about me and look at myself a bit deeper. And I've always kind of probably always had avoided stuff like this, probably because it made me initially feel quite uncomfortable. So for me, it was a place where I felt at a bit of a, I was making progress in my business. We'd done a model change, but I felt like I was still the one kind of stopping things from moving forward further in smaller terms.
When you say it like that, you realize how much a business owner has to deal with. There's
Mm,
so much internally that that yeah, goes on.
yeah, 100%.
What are the biggest frustrations, challenges you were facing with the business and internally at the time?
My biggest frustrations, I felt like I was slow to make important decisions because I just kept sitting on and not backing myself. So, we know data, everything else would say something had to happen, shifts had to be made, decisions had to be made, and I would just sit on things and think about things and overanalyze and you almost go worst case scenario a lot of the time, and it just stops you moving the needle as quickly as you'd like, or it stops you feeling like you're kind of moving in the right direction. And the other thing was just, yeah, I was still way too hands-on within my business. And yeah, sort of jumping back into everything, the day-to-day kind of stuff, which again just limits the growth of me, my team, and just yeah, just kind of held us back. And it was frustrating because I was aware of it. And that was the big thing. Like I could see myself doing it and I could see the default, but I didn't know how to break the cycle.
And if nothing changed, where do you think that would have led in another 2 years from now?
Yeah, it would have been, I think, biggest impact would be me staying where I was, which was somewhere I couldn't afford really to be. From a, I guess, a personal business perspective, it was, yeah, the business was growing, but it wasn't profitable. So that can continue for another 2 years. That would have, made me make some really tough decisions that I didn't really want to make, and also the ambitions of our team to grow as well. I think I'd have probably lost team members and not been able to fulfill their needs within the business, and yeah, just ended up probably still stuck in this cycle, and maybe even blaming something else other than looking at myself, which is and maybe looking outwardly at other reasons why this has happened rather than really identifying my own kind of limitations.
Yeah, that is the classic move to begin with, which often makes us go, hey, I'm going to look at strategies and look at systems and um, other tactics that you can implement in your business. So, what made you realize that, hey, I'm going to work on my mental fitness rather than just trying another strategy or tactic or mentorship?
It was so good recommendations from people that obviously had worked with yourself, um, and just their growth just seemed phenomenal. And I was like, this is just like cool. Like I want to explore this, and I did a little bit of mindset work, through a mentorship, and was made more aware of the importance of it. I did some work on like my personal values and started to get clear on those, and I really was like, okay, just on this started that journey, and it was just for me, it was getting some one-to-one support with that. Um, just felt like the right time for me and I just felt so suffocated by my ceiling, I guess, and me diverting back to type. I needed to kind of figure out what my next level of growth was, and I think I listened to a few of your podcasts and was just like, oh, like yeah, I need to kind of really get get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's something I avoided for too long.
Nice. Yeah, we do it. And it's funny how we can build an entire career around getting people and ourselves uncomfortable and then fail to do it like on the inside, which is a completely different place. Was there anything that, or actually, what was the thing that surprised you about working with me once we started together?
I think it was the lack of anxiety that I now feel. I think I used to get quite anxious about a lot of things in terms of, business stuff, personal life stuff, lack of freedom, lack of, time, and how I was going to kind of achieve my goals. Whereas I don't seem to feel like that anymore. I feel like I can think more rationally. I know how to sort of listen to myself and how I'm feeling about things, which um was something I never ever did. I'm so logical. My brain just goes straight to logic and rationalization. It doesn't ever let me feel anything. And then it was just opening that up. That was the initial thing we worked on, and that was just like, oh, I didn't expect to feel like this, and expect me to kind of, and to kind of learn more about different emotions and how what that related to, and what came up. And yeah, so that was quite a surprise to me. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, it's actually a really funny one for me thinking about like this as a marketing thing because I don't think I realized how anxious and stressed out and fear based I was before I started working on this stuff. And I think that a lot of people who end up working with me are in a similar situation where you don't realize how much fear is driving decision making and or lack of decision making.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And then for me, it was just yeah, fear of never reaching my goal, and yeah, it just kept me stuck because I was scared of making a decision in case it went wrong, rather than thinking actually, like, and it just made me very risk averse rather than, and ultimately maybe doing things that weren't aligned to me personally, because I was, yeah, just afraid of that,
Yeah,
afraid of, working towards where I actually really wanted to be, and
it's
really looking at that.
it's mega common. Was there a moment where something clicked for you in like in our time working together?
I think it continues to. It's hard to pinpoint like a definitive moment. I think the biggest thing has been my shift since finding out I'm going to be a father. Just the one thing. So one thing I did really click. So we did some work on my values, and kind of I had some loose ones, and we just kind of went into a bit more depth on it. And something I'd always avoided was that feeling of and thought of freedom. And I always shun that and think, oh, I don't really want freedom. I just love coaching. I love being at work. I love at the gym. But I always deep down envied people that had freedom, like people that I knew that just seemed to have these really cool, sick lives. They travel all the time, things like that. And I always just thought, yeah, that's not me. I don't want to do that. I own a brick and mortar gym, so I'm happy with that. And then, but I didn't. I think when we went through our values and really kind of went into some depth on some things. You asked me some challenging questions around it, and I realized actually it's exactly what I do want. And then learning I was going to become a father for the first time was kind of, well, actually now freedom is a big priority because I want to be more present and so forth. So I just used to hide in my work and identify myself with my work, and not really, you know, see myself as anything else. So that was the probably big light bulb moment for me, was like, oh yeah, like I do actually want that,
Great.
and crave that,
Great.
which
I'm
has been
glad
a
I
big
helped
one.
you see that. It's something that so many people hide from. Like it makes us feel so safe by not admitting to us not admitting to ourselves that we actually want something that part of us really does. And that's something you've done so well. Just saying like, actually, I'm gonna call bullshit on myself. That is something I want. What's changed most in how you think or operate or handle pressure since we started working together?
So biggest one is I think and operate. I think I think I show up much better for my team. And yeah, I hope they would agree. But I'm definitely a much better leader. Like I listen better to them. I kind of I can understand them better. And actually, before I was so in my own head, I was kind of talking to them, but probably not even listening to them, or like I really wasn't leading by example in that sense, because I think my brain was just so full of everything else I need to do and what I, needed to grow and needed to do this, need to sort this out, needed to do something for this person. Whereas now I can really sit back a little bit better, and actually, have good conversations with these guys, and actually help them grow and build them into their roles within the business, and just, yeah, just kind of really show up for them, much better than I used to, and support them, and everything else. So that's definitely changed the way I think and operate. And yeah, just much more clarity on what I want, I think is a big one.
Great, great. And it's amazing how far that clarity goes. It really is. What impact has the shift that we've made had on your business and leadership and performance?
So business is good. It's the best it's ever been, from I guess a numbers point of view, and a kind of impact point of view. Um, and I now, the main thing is I now feel much more excited to move forwards in life, and I feel, um, whereas before maybe I would be so daunted by everything that's coming up in my life. Now I'm more excited to kind of integrate it and figure it all out, rather than just be like, oh my goodness, I've got to think about the gym and a baby and my partner and everything else. Now I feel like I can figure it all out. And yeah, I do have. I always struggle to understand what like having more capacity to deal with things meant, but I definitely now feel I can handle more, if that makes sense. But and I'm just, yeah, feeling more excited to continue to test my own personal limits and grow, and see where I can, yeah, take
Yeah,
my
well, you're,
life.
you're
And
definitely doing that. Like you're seeing it like it seems like every time we jump on a call, so every other week, it's like there's another level unlocked or there's another new challenge, which is exactly what we want. It's not stagnation. It's like it's growth on growth on growth, which I suppose leads to the identity question of like, who have you had to become in order to create the progress you've made?
yeah, so for me, I've always sat comfortably in that coach persona. So someone who just, feels most confident and most important when he's on the gym floor, and coaching, helping people with the sets and reps, and it's just, really taking myself mentally into that whole, oh, well, actually, I need to unlock a whole new level of myself that's more focused on, creating a sustainable business that changes more people's lives and builds a team that can operate as effectively as I have. And that was a big challenge of me, is currently still a big challenge of mine, just to really remove myself from that, and see the joy, and move into that discomfort of, you know, becoming a newbie PT in that realm, and having to learn, more about, leadership and business, and everything else. But it's something I am excited about. But yeah, that's um, definitely it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely taking steps into that beginner's mind. Like every single week again is like, or every other week that we speak, it's another way to like get back into that being that newbie and that willingness to not be great at something and to not sit in the safety of I know how to do this is what's enabled you to grow so quickly. If there was someone watching this and they feel like or listening to this, that makes them feel like I know I'm capable of more, but I can't quite unlock it yet, what would you say to them?
I think it's definitely, people, I don't think, realize how helpful it can be to seek out people that are where they want to be. And it's the same, we look, people will hire coaches for their gym program, but we then, no one addresses the actual limitation, which is themselves. And something you mentioned recently was like, it's usually the operator that is the one that holds the business back, never the strategy, never the thing. And I think, yeah, it's just that real gutsiness to really confront yourself, and and yeah, I just think I wish people wouldn't avoid that as much. And you see it so much. I think when you are
Yeah.
in the kind of realm of learning and growing yourself and doing this process, because I've avoided it for years. Um, and you just think, yeah, it's all right. You're like, yeah, we'll just crack on. We'll go to another mentorship and find another business strategy, and then nothing really changes until you realize, oh, actually, it's my behavior, it's me, and I need to really look at my kind of um pitfalls and figure that out. So yeah, I think it's indispensable, and I think it's worth anyone doing this for a period of time, making an investment in themselves. Like that's the key, is having the guts to back themselves and invest in themselves to take themselves to the next level.
Yeah, I think what you said there about like if you're doing this for any length of time, in other words, like if you're going to take this seriously, if you're going to take your business, if it needs to become something serious for you rather than just a part-time gig or just something that you're willing to be average at or struggling with maybe, then like you need to work on this kind of stuff. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate you. They're all my questions. It's been like genuinely absolute privilege working with you so far.